So hello everybody. Thank you for joining this session. Our first session about Alfresco Workdesk. I know that this topic is new for the most of you, so I will start at the very beginning to give you a short introduction into Workdesk. But then I will hand over this to Mike Mahon from SIA Consulting. He will give you a case study about a very successful project at a very large customer. And then in the second part of the session, we will come to the new contract management solution of Workdesk, and Rainer will give you a live demo on the solution. So maybe you have seen a very similar slide in the keynote of DAC. Before we dig deeper into Workdesk, I would like to give you a little bit of frame of where we are in the content management landscape with Workdesk. So maybe you have heard the talk of the Gartner analyst right now. It seems that ECM is dead. So, but nevertheless, I think we will continue to see pictures like this because there are needs around content management. So, of course, there is the backend system, the repository, the enterprise content platform. But we all know that there are so many different use cases around content management that there is no single system, no single UI covering them all. So there are web content management use cases with different vendors. There are collaboration use cases around document management, collaboration, social content management. One of the sweet spots of Alfresco so far, and probably the sweet spot for SharePoint. And then there are what analysts call transactional content management use cases, so more process-centric use cases, where the integration into other backend systems, ERP systems, CRM systems are important. And many people talk now about case management solutions in this area. And if we map this now to the Alfresco product portfolio, of course, we have a super scalable and robust platform, and we have Alfresco Share as the UI that you used for years for the collaboration-based use cases, very successful for document management use cases. But now we have also Workdesk, which is designed to work as the solution of choice for the transactional content management space, so for the case management use cases, when it comes to streamline of the core business processes. So here are a number of use cases where Workdesk fits well. It's, for example, contract management, where you will see a live demo of it later on in the session. It's when we speak about deal management, it can be a different type of deals. One large customer of ours is an investment bank, and they do all of their deal management, their investment deals with, I think, 3,000 employees based on Workdesk. Mailroom automation is typically very transactional and also different onboarding processes for employee onboarding or customer onboarding. And in all those cases, what is the biggest benefit is the process efficiency that customers wanted to reach. And of course, cost savings coming out of this. So at the end of the day, it's all about customer satisfaction and to be compliant. So what makes Workdesk a difference? You can say, okay, we have had a number of projects in the past where we customized Alfresco or built an individual application on top of Alfresco or customized the hell out of Share to get it done. Workdesk comes to the table now with a few really new concepts that saves you a lot of time and money. First of all, it's business role management. So in addition to the access control, to the document level access control that Alfresco gives you, there comes an additional business role management. So every employee in the organization gets a view on its application. may it on the documents, but also on functionality that is dependent on the business role that the employee is in. That's very, very important, and this plays together with a second concept called dynamic folders and views. With Alfresco, typically a document resides in one folder or in one side. Together with Workdesk, this can be much more flexible. So a document resides in on one physical location, but Workdesk can show it in different e-files, different virtual views, according to the relevance in the business role. And last but not least, this is done by configuration and not by coding. So when you get your skills of building a Workdesk application, it's more of an configuration of the underlying technology is XML, but there are tools to configure this XML, and you will see that you save a lot of time because you don't have to code. Of course, if you integrate third-party systems into the application, and this is typically the case, and then there is a point where you integrate, where you go into the code. But compared to other customizations, it's really done with a far less amount of money and time. When we look at this little more graphical way, then at the heart of every Workdesk installation is the Alfresco repository, of course. And this is the same repository, so it's not a different solution. It's an additional component on top of the Alfresco One platform. That's very important, and I think there was a little bit of confusion in the market when Alfresco Workdesk was brought to the portfolio. It's not a totally different solution. It's an add-on component like records management, for example, which brings additional value to the Alfresco One platform, and which is an important part now of the overall platform. So you can use the same content repository, use it with your standard views, with Alfresco Share, with mobile, and put on top Alfresco Workdesk, and you can leverage additional value by bringing the business role management and that delivers personalization to it. So Workdesk then enables you to see the right content at the right time, depending on these business roles. And with this, I would like to hand over it to Mike to give you an insight of how such an implementation looks like.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So this is a legal use case for a search company out of California. So if you can't figure that one out. So you've heard a lot today about simple and smart, and I kind of want to talk about an approach that I think is included in that, and that would be considered agile, right? ECM is not always very agile. One of the things that we figured out is most important to our customers is get a win very, very quickly. And with share out of the box or configuration, it can be very, very difficult. And so when we did an initial sales process with this company, we spent about 7 months with them just engaging them in the buy process and getting them to be convinced that Workdesk was the right tool. To support Stefan's concept here, what they wanted to do was customize share, basically strip everything out much like it looks today, and add in a few key pieces. That customization alone was 3 times more expensive than buying another product and doing the customization with Workdesk. And so, so what we did was we went in for the first week or two, talked to 5 different legal departments, got them to spin it down to only 3 to go live with, and gave them within 2 or 3 weeks, gave them a fully baked assessment of not just what the next 3 weeks were going to look like, the next 3 months, and then if the implementation was successful, their next 18-month roadmap, which we're about 17 months into. And we did the work with Workdesk. They bought Alfresco Enterprise, obviously, and we delivered this to one department, and then 2 weeks later we rolled out the next department, and 2 weeks later after that we rolled out the third. And so it was about 4 months total to get all 3 of the original first departments rolled out. And since then, the project has gone significantly bigger. It's now in 5 different kind of major data centers and office locations, and has almost 1,000 lawyers on the system. And so one of the problems that we've got with most of the tools that we implement, especially for legal departments, is everything is pretty much done through email. And that's actually not all that uncommon to what we see in most of the, it's this similar in banking, in manufacturing, in media. We see the same thing. The primary workflow tool at most organizations, even if they have workflow, is email and file share. So the problem with that is it doesn't actually scale that well, right? It's hard to find. You've got them all over the place. And even if you're using something like Gmail, which has a very good search algorithm, you don't actually find what you need and when it went out. The other thing is literally on file shares. This was the primary problem. As you can imagine, this is a very technically adept company. They've tried to do this a number of times themselves, and they were still back on email and file shares. And so it just doesn't scale. They're not able to do it themselves, but there was nothing really that could address it. And so the other big problem too is when you're talking about like a merger and an acquisition, or something that's highly, highly confidential, there might only be 5 or 6 individuals within the entire company that can see something until it gets to a certain phase, at which point there's another level of confidential where it rolls out to 40 or 50. From that point, it might roll out company-wide or be released to the press, or at least internal. So this is a common problem with email. It's a common problem with laptops, and obviously file shares. And so if those are our primary collaboration tools, why do we actually still use them? And the biggest reason, honestly, it's easy. If someone builds you a 30-step workflow to deal with what is inherently a water cooler conversation to get a deal done, you're going to bypass the system if you can. I've built these systems for 15, 16 years now, and people just hate them. I've built 100-step workflows that spawn 100-step workflows and document them, never in Alfresco. But literally, when you're into this kind of workflow, sometimes that complexity is required. And we heard a talk yesterday about some publishing. Publishing use cases can be extremely complex because there's actually that many approval steps in an organization. But for a legal contract or something where you're iterating with people outside, inside counsel or outside, it's really not that complex. So this was their primary decision, is they had tried twice to roll their own or implement some open source free software. And they ended up hiring a guy that worked at a banking company in New York to come out, run the Alfresco project, because that was the technology they had decided on. And then they were just looking at the use case of what they were going to do to build it out. The other thing is there's not really an integrated solution that can handle the scope and size of what they're trying to deal with. So they've got 5, actually about 9 or 10 different departments, but there's 5 major divisions within them with hundreds of people within. The use cases are all slightly similar, and they're all a little bit different as well. And so one of the nice things about Workdesk, and we'll show it in a little bit here, is by doing configuration, you can also do something else. It's almost like a hierarchical or an inherited coding, right? So you build out a feature or a function for one particular department. You can easily reuse that by tweaking the business role and the functionality through configuration for another department. That customization and share would be extremely difficult, or really in a custom UI as well. And so you kind of get this notion of not just business role and configuration, but really the ability to say, I'm going to build a generic hierarchy for one and then tweak it 5 times. And it rolls back up instead of custom code that's fragile and breaks every time there's a point release that comes underneath, right? So some of the biggest things with this company is they have an enormous set of features that they require. And they're absolutely adamant that everything be very simple and very easy to use, right? No training required. So that's really the last point, is anything that we built for them, if a user had to sit through a training at Alfresco or talk to someone in our documentation department about how these features work, they would kill the project internally. It's an interesting request. It's the first time I've ever actually had that request in the ECM space. Usually we just give people a set of tools, and then they deal with what they've been given because it fixes a problem for the business or not. This was the opposite. They said, look, we don't care how many times we've failed. If someone has to sit through a training, they're not going to use it. If they don't use it, it won't expand. We wanted to grow the account. We're still there. We've been there. It was a small team initially. We've been there 18 months rolling out different features. So the mergers and acquisition login, and the reason that I'm showing this is there's really only, there's two groups, right? There's a master legal home, and there's an M&A case. And you can't really, I don't know if you can see the screen that well, so I'll walk you through it a little bit. But when you log in as an M&A, you have access to general corporate legal, and then you have your mergers and acquisitions, and that's it. It's a very important thing, and the reason that that is because this structure on the left-hand side is very similar to what they had on their file shares, right? So this is the way, regardless of how many departments you're in, what system it's in, even on the back end, although it is all in Alfresco, they wanted this structure for every M&A deal to start. The other thing is that the properties that you can right-click on are configurable, right? So there's a couple out of the box, and then anything that's highly tailored for an M&A use case is this. You also have different abilities to change roles within the M&A department so that you can have an approver role, an administrative role, or kind of a general counsel role. The next is the drag and drop from the desktop. Because email isn't going away, matter of fact, we have a number of Gmail integrations where we're tightly integrated with Gmail, much like some of iManage does for, if anyone knows iManage, it's a legal product that does a tight integration with Outlook. It's really the reason that that product's been successful for years is because it has an extremely tight integration to Outlook, and that is still the primary communication vehicle and workflow for lawyers. So what we did was we gave them the ability to link and directly load an NDA from, example, an NDA into the M&A work case, which spins up a new project, or to save it to the desktop because you're working with a template, and then drag and drop it in, and it pops the same thing. And what you get is a very simple form. This is, actually, I wish that for this particular department, one of the things that we tend to do for all of our ECM projects is we obfuscate the complexity. We hide the complexity for the user. So if I know you, your role, where I'm at in the repository, I can pull out about 5 out of 6 required fields just from that information, and we fill it in on the background. And the reason for that is users are lazy. They're just not going to put metadata in unless they're forced to. Maybe not here, but they certainly are in the States. It's a little different with an NDA. This is the required information to kick up a merger and acquisition. And since NDA is the start point for all of these, you create the NDA. Once it's signed, you fill out a couple of required pieces of information. The other one is it confidential? This one, there's 3 different levels there. If there's 3 different levels, what you see in the assigning list and who gets to see it also changes. So once you drop that in, enter that metadata, it pops in, gives you common areas that you've recently opened. The legal use case tabs on the top do exactly what they'd expect, and then the structure is built in, same for every single deal. The other thing is deals of a certain size or of a certain volume have a slightly different taxonomy and different business rules behind them, different approvers. What I should also say is that there's a lot of workflow in this system. It's just on the background. So it's not form-driven. It's actually rules and behaviors. If you haven't used, if there's technical folks in the crowd, and you're not using rules and behaviors as a way to build out your workflow systems for people, you should strongly consider it. It's a very elegant way to do specific needs for a particular department without having the users have to see that, complexity. And so some of the results that came from the project, right, the first focus was on being easy, and that was their requirement. No training required. We've hidden that a little bit. We actually have created 3-minute training videos for a couple of different features, and that's because they have some unique, basically when you're trying to collaborate with somebody at a water cooler, it's very simple, but when that water cooler is in Boston, England, and somewhere else, it's very tough. And so they wanted to mimic the ability to be able to have these quick collaborative discussions within the tool and then make decisions very rapidly. and that was outside of what they normally do, and they were going back to email to have it. So we created a custom widget for them, and they're able to do it. So we popped a 3-minute training video in for that. But it really can't be any longer than 3 minutes. The next one is we really listened to them. They only wanted to use the tools they already use, Adobe, Microsoft Word. There's an outside integration tool that does diffs for red lines and black lines of legal documents to see if words have been changed. And those are the only tools that they had to use, other than a few people will log in to the M&A case and work through a deal. And the other one is, it really is. And I say 70 to 700 because it scaled from 70 to 700. It's almost 1,000 users now. And the next is, after we got that first 3-month win in place, they said, now we've got millions of files on shared drives. How do we migrate them? And so we took them through a very similar, about 3 months, to get several million of their files off of shared drives into Alfresco, into a mapped structure. And so if you come to our booth later, I'm happy to talk to you about both of the processes that we use for that, because we have a very good process for migration in addition to, I'm happy to show you the legal use case. The results for Smart are, it's business role-based. Stefan mentioned this. I can't stress it enough. First thing you do when you roll out an ECM is you screw up. You put a taxonomy that doesn't work, and you put roles and groups in that don't match the business, or within 6 months, the business has changed. The ability to define a new role with new features, new search templates, and a hierarchy that matches that business function without touching the underlying ECM is enormous. It really is kind of future-proofing our own inherently human mistakes, or that the business has changed. The next one is this rules and behaviors, and I mentioned this, but this really is the hidden gem in Alfresco. The ability to use workflow when you need it, and put it in the background when you don't. Really, you can just extract most of the information you need from people, move things through an approval process, open up a document, change the status in Word, save it back. That could just advance the workflow. It doesn't need to open up a form, upload the file, hit approve, on we go. We just don't need to have that anymore, and Alfresco has a lot of these pieces included. The next one is upgrades are much easier. Because the UI is configurable, we've gone through a release or two of Workdesk and several of Alfresco. They've upgraded 4 or 5 times to different releases because they want some of the new features and functions or new hot fixes that are coming out. There's still a few bugs. But we've done these major configurations in the middle of rolling out new changes for different departments. So this is really one of my favorite things, is you architecturally separate some of the code, but it's done through configuration, not coding, which means you really are safe to upgrade the back end. It's actually kind of what Doug wants to do when he builds cloud apps, right? Is you separate your ECM storage and rules and functioning from the cloud applications. Workdesk is another way to do that for your on-premise crowd. The other one is really time saved. Projects are kicked off and started in a timely way, and that's really a significant thing. I just got to check my time here. Are we doing okay, guys? We're good? Okay, good. So projects are kicked off, started, and tracked in a timely way. That was one of the biggest things. It's actually very similar for all of our customers, is if you can actually show that the business, they aren't saving an enormous amount of time, there's a consistency and a continuity with it, and then when they need to spin up, like for a funding project, it may have 3, 4, 5 stages of funding. They can find it, pull from the existing template, create a new funding round without touching the old files. The other one is institutionalization and internationalization, or internalization. The big one there is we've actually, interestingly, changed a bit of a core culture at this company, right? So they went from about 50 lawyers to about 700 or 800 in a very short time, which is kind of scary. But through doing that, by giving them a standard process to say this is the way all 5 groups of legal handle things, and it's consistent for general legal down to your specific needs, it's created this thing where people are asking for their group to come on next. That's not a typical rollout for ECM projects. People don't always jump in and say, I can't wait to be the next one on. So that's been really effective for us, and that's because we listened to the way that they want to work and then built tools around it. And then smart, effective, and simple. Really, the security needs have been met without sacrificing ease of use. The way it used to be is there's actually a separate file share for the most highly confidential lawyers, and they're, no offense, the laziest ones of the group. So the most stringent requirements for security were ignored and were most lax with the most risk for the business, because they're more likely to have their admin put things onto the shared drive and collaborate when they're not supposed to see it. And the other one really is this tie back to the external tools and the email. And so I think we'll have time for questions at the end. I don't think that's, yeah, I think I'm done. I'm going to turn this over to Reiner. He's going to give a live demo. Stefan's going to step in for a second, then, yeah, of course, let me turn this off.
Yeah, so we will now move into the contract management solution. So I think it's interesting to see that an organization with almost 1,000 lawyers was not able to really have full control about all their agreements, because at the end of the day, what this customer did was a contract management solution, a very comprehensive one. But contract management is still a very hot topic in ECM. Maybe a short question. Who believes that your organization has really full control of all the contracts and agreements that they have in place? Oh, we have to talk. Almost nobody. So there was a survey of I think it was AIM, and the biggest risk is coming out of documents and nobody has really control of it. So we think that we can help with this solution. We can help legal people, procurement people to get rid of this typical overload they have in their daily business. It's everywhere the same. Mostly there are no good approval processes in place, so every contract work is done in email and a lot over the phone. So very often there's no consistency in the versions of contract templates that are used. There are a lot of mistakes made with sometimes even legal consequences. And one very important point is that you can really save money if you use best practices and have a good contract management solution in place. Because in most procurement departments, there is no overview about what contracts milestones will be reached in a few weeks from now. So chances to terminate and renegotiate contracts are there, but these opportunities are not taken. And Rainer will show you now how we will address this now with the contract management solution of Workdesk.
So good, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So welcome everybody. Move this a little bit here. Okay, so I will show you a demo of this new contract management solution, and what you will see in the demo that I will change also the business roles sometimes. Unfortunately, you cannot tell it really from the user interface, but I'm trying to lead you through this as good as possible. So I'm logging into the system. We have the standard Workdesk user interface. It's available in 6 languages right now. But for example, if you're from Russia, where we don't have the language right available, it's just a translation of some language resource files. One big advantage of the contract management solution is that a business user, a business administrator, can go into the system and can define the structure of a contract. So in this solution, a contract does not consist of a single document, but as in the real world, it consists of a structure and of several documents. So maybe the main contract, the T&Cs, some appendices. If you think about some technical contracts, drawings, pictures, and so forth. And so the contract administrator of the client, a business guy, can log into the system and can configure this structure of the contract. And that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm the contract administrator. I'm logging into the system. And here I'm seeing the tabs. So that's the main working areas Workdesk provides. And those tabs, they are changing for different business roles. So and we will see this in the demo. So different business roles will have different tabs, different main functionalities, but also different, as Mike pointed out, different kind of flavors of the base functionality. For example, adding documents will be different for different business users. So now I'm looking in a purchasing contract here, and we see we have this structure of the purchasing contract. So it consists of the T&Cs, of the proposal, of the request for proposal, correspondence, and so forth. And now I could take this and could work on this. And for example, my legal department has been informed that we have new T&Cs. And so now I'm adding the new T&Cs to this contract template. So I'm just going to add document. And now I can select from the different templates which are already stored in Alfresco. So we are very compliant here. We have stored the latest version of the T&C from the legal department in Alfresco. And we are now adding those T&Cs to this new contract template. So T and C. And it should be active from now on. Effective from now on. And what I want to do else, I also, since I am working, our company is working mostly with European suppliers, I want to set the default currency of my contract to euros. Okay, and I'm saving this, and now I'm done with this administrator role. Of course, it would take too long to show you the whole process, but we have a demo point there, and there we can show you how we really can set up a completely new contract. So now I'm logging out from the system, and now I'm logging in as the contract manager, so someone who is working in the purchasing department and is buying stuff for our company. So we are working here in the demo company who is maintaining wind parks with wind energy power generation windmills, and so I now want to buy a new windmill. So of course I can look at all the other windmills I have bought already, but now I want to buy a new one. So I click just on create a contract. I'm selecting from the list of templates the purchasing contract. And now I can add some metadata. So yet another windmill. And what you see here also, that the system has automatically created a contract number. And this contract number is later on used to identify all documents which belong to this very contract. It can configure how this contract number is created. It can also be connected to back-end systems, which give me some additional information and so forth. And what you also see here, that the default currency is set to euros, because the contract administrator has set the default currency to euros. So this windmill has cost me about 5 million. And I want to buy a Hurricane 5000. And now the system creates exactly the contract structure the administrator was determining. So it's assured that I'm working compliant, that I don't miss anything. For example, if I go in here, we see that also here in the terms and conditions, we have the terms and conditions already in there in the current version. Because I think you know this from your life several times, there are big disputes which terms and conditions have been used and so forth. And we also, what we also have in here is we have the template for the request for proposal for a RFP I want now to send out to my supplier. Now I'm clicking on this, And now this document is opened directly in Microsoft Word. And what also happens is that we are mixing in metadata from Alfresco into this Word document. So the red fields here are coming directly from Alfresco. So here, for example, this contract number I was just creating, when creating the contract is in here, the model is here, the power is here, and also have a status for this RFP here. So I can look at it, and if everything is okay, I'm changing directly in Word the status from new to sent, and I'm saving it back. I'm closing it. Yes, I want to save it. Saving it back to Alfresco. I'm done here in Word, and if I go back to my contract and I do a refresh here, we see that we have saved it back, that we have increased the version number, and what we also see that by a Alfresco rule, we have created a PDF version of this document. So again, compliance, we have really documented what we have sent out to our supplier. So takes some time, some weeks, and my supplier has now answered. So I'm looking into my, my inbox and see that the supplier has sent back the contract, and now I want to save this contract from the supplier back into Alfresco. So I go into Microsoft Office, Save As, and then from Microsoft Office I directly can go into my contract management solution in Alfresco. So I can now have in the file open dialog of Microsoft Word, I have a tiny little version of Workdesk of the contract management solution in. And also here, based on my user role, I have exactly what I need. So I have exactly the searches for the contract, searches for single documents, searches for master agreements, and so forth. So now I'm looking for the contract I was just working on. So I can limit the search just to purchasing contracts, for example. And here I have my, my yet another windmill I was just creating. And I want to save the contract now to this folder here. So that's the contract. And I'm saving it back. So directly from Word, no other user interface needed, role-based, everything. If I go back to the contract management in Workdesk and go into my contract folder, now we see that here we have this contract. So I'm looking at it and I see that the customer didn't accept one paragraph of our T&Cs. And so I have to get into contact with my legal department and get legal approval for this. So in order to do though, I start a workflow, and I can do this by this icon here. So we can configure Workdesk really that it fits to the user, that it really accelerates the work of the user. So the things we anticipate the users will use most, we can have directly here in the hit list, but of course we also can have a drop-down menu here. So now I'm starting this approval workflow for the legal approval. So they do not accept para 7.2 of the ads. The mouse pad is kind of mixing up of the T and C's. This is okay. Okay, and I'm sending this now to my legal department. Now I'm again changing the role, using also another browser. Of course, Workdesk runs in nearly every modern web browser. So now I'm a user of the legal department. And now you see, okay, timeout. Really the power of this business role management. So the legal department users are very, very expensive people. They want to do their work very, very fast. And therefore, in this case, Workdesk has given this legal user a very reduced user interface, which is just concentrated on this task of this very user. So do I have some time? A little time, yes. So one of the best kept secrets of Alfresco, when Doug saw the first time Workdesk, he said, oh, that's smart, that's simple. And then he thought, oh, I would want to make this the motto for the whole company. And then, of course, it took some weeks in marketing department. We were discussing in marketing, and we came back with, yeah, simple plus smart. That's a new company motto for us. So for the legal guy, it's really very, very simple here. So he just can click on it, and he sees what the the purchasing agent was typing in. Of course, he could directly jump into the contract or in a contract, but from this form here, he also can jump into the more complicated contract structure, can look at everything and can see, for example, the T&Cs which were sent out to the customer and everything. So with very few clicks, the legal guy gets all the information he needs in order to make his decision. So he goes back to the task and says, okay, that is not important. Go ahead and completes it, and the task has disappeared from the inbox of the legal guy. So now I'm back as the purchasing agent, and I look in my inbox, and voila, the work item has come back to me. I can look at it. I see that the legal guy has approved it, and so I can now print it out, sign, and send it to the customer. And I'm done with this process. So we really have streamlined this process. We have done everything in a very compliant manner. So the third topic we are addressing is that in many, many companies, the overview of the contract is lacking. So the overview, which contracts are due for renewal, which contracts are expiring, and so forth. And therefore, we added a little reporting module, which, for example, here shows me all contracts which are going to expire in the next month, which contracts which are expiring in the next 3 months, and so forth. So, and this helps me, of course, to renegotiate better conditions with my suppliers, to search for new suppliers, and so forth in time. And this really converts to big, big savings. And if I'm more interested how my department is doing, I have this report here, which shows me which contracts are new, which are effective, which are archived, and so forth, which also gives me a good overview how, in this case, my purchasing department is doing, where I have, for example, some bottlenecks, where I have to add some additional people to work on the contracts, and so forth. And very important also, this comes really out of the box. It's part of Workdesk. You get it with a standard license fee or subscription for Workdesk, and you can really start within a few days building your own contract solution on it. Thank you. I'm handing back over to Stefan. Sorry.
So I hope you see that our new vision, simple and smart, is almost there. It's not so far away. And I think you saw that there is an improved efficiency with such a solution. We can really show a way to get back the control, and we can save a lot of money. Very, very important is really this short time to value. You can start using it after installation within a few days, I would say. And then it depends on your integration work, what you have to do. But forget those times that you have to go into a customer and do a lot of coding and going live not within a few quarters. These times are gone. So I hope we made you a little bit curious about Workdesk. That was just really scratching it a little bit. We have a lot of more talks this afternoon over there in the other building, H3, our 3 or 4 talks about Workdesk. Right after lunch, the session Technical Insights will give you the insight, especially about these core concepts about how is this feeling, this business role management. It's quite abstract if we talk about it on this give you only this high overview. So please come to these sessions, and yes, if you have questions right now, we have a few more 4 minutes for questions. We have also a demo booth in the exhibition area, so please come by. Any questions? How customizable? No, there's no constraints. This is the good thing. So when you cannot configure something, then you can always do a customization. But maybe a platinum partner with a lot of experience should answer this question.
It's written in Java, so also like
He's a marketing guy. Don't believe him. Believe him.
I can't lie, so so don't ask me hard questions. No, it's very, very customizable. So it's customizable in Java. You can also do web customizations as well. Really, yep, please. Yeah, so we actually have, you know, they'll say yes to everything. I'm certain of it. We demo this a lot, right? So we do legal, we do financial services, and within that sector, we do insurance and mortgage banking predominantly. Bottom line is, when you're talking to a customer, this makes sense like this, or you don't talk about it again. However, email and file share collaboration always makes sense with desktop tools, right? So if there's not a Workdesk user interface that makes sense, Office Workdesk will. But if somebody's managing a queue of some sort, a lot of, you know, if somebody does something the same roughly once a day or twice a day, this may or may not make sense. If they do a lot of the same things every day or in different parts of the department or the organization, then this makes sense immediately. It fits HR, it fits onboarding, it fits training. We're particularly good at it in legal and financial. Yeah. Yeah.
When you have computational applications like SAP, Salesforce, and Alfresco,
Yeah.
How do you choose your workflow and do you take your master in one of the three or in all three? Or?
That's a great question. It's actually really confusing for integrators and also for businesses, right? Because if you talk to your PeopleSoft team, they'll tell you everything should be driven through PeopleSoft workflow, which of course they would, because it takes 18 months to do it. But really, the bottom line is use the tool for what it's good for. Basic rule, right? So don't overbuild something in Alfresco that you get for free with your CRM, right, or with your sales tool. However, if it's managing the collaboration, the input, versioning, things like that, that's a strong suit for Alfresco. You absolutely manage it there. If there is no queue, then you might as well put it in Workdesk, right? So we have a lot of people that will initiate contracts from PeopleSoft, use this as the tool to iterate, collaborate, and store, and then pop it back to PeopleSoft once it's published. So they never know that they left PeopleSoft, and the people that are in Workdesk never knew it originated from there. But it's a great way to tie it in. You can also then look it up in both systems, right? So if you're collaborating or you want to do a sync and put it in an outside folder and share with outside counsel, they can look at it out there. You pull it back. It still links to PeopleSoft. No one knows it left the building, so to speak.
I'm looking at 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
The third one is the ELP where you have most of your transactions sitting.
Absolutely. So honestly, the reason that you use Alfresco as the core is because they're not just open source. I mean, I love open source software, but they're open standards. And so it's the easiest ECM system I've ever used to integrate with other tools. Everybody says they have that, but it's actually incredibly easy to build like an ESB, so an enterprise service bus integration back to your ERP with a standard link back and forth. There's usually a simple set of communication protocol that's required to fetch and put information and then store that asset back where it belongs in Alfresco. So it's not out of the box, but it is configurable, and then once you write it well, it's reusable for other things. We actually have done things where we wrote a contracts management integration to PeopleSoft, and then ended up building a mobile application that allowed people to kick off cases for graffiti or civil engineering request, because the same integration that we wrote from Alfresco to PeopleSoft was also used in their call center software. So it works really well. The economy of scale both on a couple different levels there.
Let me add that in Workdesk we have a concept which is called fit controls, which allows to integrate data from other systems very easily into workflow in order to display them, but also to feedback data to backend systems like ERP.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you talk about contract regulatory and so on. I mean, in my company, we still sign contract and process by hand.
Yes.
So, have you managed this solution with signing electronic?
Yeah, so you're talking about you have a desire to go to electronic or digital signatures, or how do you keep the wet signature? Both. Come see me at the booth. So I am selling. So we have zSign, which is an integrated add-on to Alfresco. So you basically, Alfresco and Workdesk, then you can put zSign on, which allows you to sign one-to-many contracts electronically through a simple workflow. So that last step, you could say ready for signature. It goes to you in a queue. You put it in a 2-pin authentication, signs a document, and it can change based on whatever document you want. Or if you want to do wet signatures, you could scan using a tool, Effisoft. We're also a partner of Effisoft. And you'd scan into there, we classify and extract the information, store it right where it belongs.
And by that contract number, for example.
That's right. You could, yep. And store things like effective date. You don't, all that lazy user metadata thing, it pulls it off the contract and stores it along with the content type in Alfresco. Love to show you the combination of those two. Okay, thanks. Yeah, come see us at the booth.